Hello, everybody, and welcome to Easy Landlord Forum's April webinar. We will be going over how to price your house for maximum profits in the renting industry. If you can hear me, feel free to chat in the chat box on the right side. We would love to hear who you are and where you're chatting in from. We'll be starting the webinar shortly, so just be patient, and we'll start in just a few moments. Hello all, thanks for joining us. Welcome to Easy Landlord Forum's April webinar. We're glad you could join us today. As a little bit of a thank you, we're going to have a little promo that we're going to put up. You should see it pop up around the chat box. Also, we will be having another webinar that you're more than welcome to register for on May 25th, I believe. May 23rd. And I'll have a link for you to join there if you wish. We will be starting any moment now. Elizabeth Colgrove from the Reluctant Landlord will be giving a little presentation on how to maximize your profits. Thanks for joining us. All right, everybody. I am Dan from Easy Landlord Forums. Today I'm here with Elizabeth Colgrove from the Reluctant Landlord. We're going to be going through a few tips on how to price your house for maximum profit. I put a little promo up as a little thank you for being here today. Discount on a pro membership from our website. We'll also be having a webinar next May, and we have the registration link up in the chat as well. We will be having a Q&A after the slide presentation, so if you can throw some questions out there now, we'll try to get to them, and you're more than welcome to wait until the Q&A as well. Thanks again, and Elizabeth, introduce yourself.
Hi all. Sorry. Um Hey y'all, sorry about that. I think for some reason my sound went off. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about that. Okay, so let me get started again. I look forward to working with you all. My name is Elizabeth Colgrove. I'm from the Reluctant Landlord. And, as everybody knows, owning rentals is about making money. It's a business. And so one of the things as having 10 houses is maximizing how much you make per house, because it's not about how much you make total. It's about how much you make total. So let's get started. So the first thing that I want to talk about is Ezlandlord forms. And the reason I love these forms is because they're very important to helping you maximize how much you make. Because to maximize how much you make, you need to have a great lease, which their lease is amazing. And then it also is about having the right forms, because you need to send out renewals, non-renewals, and everything else that goes with the business. So let's get started. So the first thing to talk about is how to establish what kind of market are you in. Are you in a market that's a hot rental market that can afford to push the prices or are pushing the prices? Many areas, including where I'm in right now, there is a high demand for rentals. So the key with that is then understanding that as a landlord, since you can push the market, making sure that your rentals are up to par, because where they were 3 or 4 years ago is not where they are today. For example, one of my houses in Charleston, South Carolina in 2012 was renting for $975, and that house is now renting for $1040 or $1440. So the key is making sure that your rents are where they should be, because that would have been a loss of $500. That's a lot of money. So number one is the market to become landlord markets. Two, people are selling their houses. And so the way you can know if it's a hot rental market is if everyone's selling their houses, then there's going to be a lower demand or a lower supply on the rentals, which means there's going to be a higher demand for rents because there's not as much supply. Number three is people are priced out of the market for buying. And number four, the high sales price means higher rents. So let's talk about how to determine your rental value, because remember, it's not about your expenses. It's all about the rents of your area. So number one is to look at actual house comps. I love Zillow in many, many ways, but I am not a fan of their estimator or any of the other estimators. The reality is the estimators don't necessarily know your property. They look at some comps and they look around. I remember many years ago when we were getting started with a new build, it said that our house was supposed to rent for $700 and it rented for $1,800. So the key is to look at your actual comps. And what are comps? Well, you need to look at your school district. You need to look at your square footage, your numbers of rooms and baths. And third, when you are looking at it, remember, don't overvalue improvements. Paint, flooring, granite, stainless steel, all of these upgrades. I redid the upstairs bathroom. Some of that will get you more money in some areas. And some areas, the reality is it just won't. For example, there was 2 new build houses in the same area. And I remember years ago, a friend of mine put all the custom upgrades in the house, and we didn't put any custom upgrades. The reality is both of our houses rented for the same value. So the thing is, when you're looking at your rent value, make sure that you're looking at school districts, neighborhoods. In some areas where we are in California, you totally can make more money on a pool, but not a lot more. So when you're looking at it in other areas like HOAs with pools and out pools, make sure you're comparing apples to apples and not just adding value, because unfortunately, for example, where we are in Charleston and we add an HOA of $125 that adds landscaping, our values aren't $125 from other neighborhoods. So you definitely need to look at like all of the added, but also look at your houses themselves. Now, we're talking, this is a business, right? We want to make money. So how do we take advantage of these high rents? So number one, you can rent instead of sell. If you're making, $5, $6, sometimes $1,000 on your mortgage because you bought it at a great time, that's a lot of money per year instead of selling your house. Number two, make sure that when you're renting your house out for the first time, you're taking advantage of that high rent. I know it's really easy to be like, oh, I want to give a good value, or, oh, they're requesting this low rent, or, oh, a friend of a friend wants to rent out for X amount. But make sure you're treating this like a business and starting out high. The reality is no one cares about the discount when the AC goes out. So you can't be like, I was giving a $300 discount, and that's why, we aren't replacing X, Y, and Z. Increase your rent during tenant turnover. That's very important. Like I said, our rents have gone up a lot. So make sure that you aren't hurting yourself by not like reevaluating the market and like raising rents to what they should be for that market. And then renewal, everybody loves a long-term tenant. We had one that's been in there, amazing. And so the key for that is make sure that you're upping them so that you don't have a tenant of 6 or 7 years who's at $500, $600 below value. If you do it a little bit each year, $20, $50, $75, it's a lot easier than having to like jump at $600 or $700 because they've been in there forever. Next, renting instead of selling. Renting has a lot of value and the financial side. You can pay off your mortgage because remember, once you had your mortgage, the later you get in the mortgage, the more you're putting on principal pay down. Number two, there's the rental income. You can earn more with going rate rents for your area. 3, if you rent now, later, if the market keeps going up, you can take care of that inflation. For example, we sold 3 houses last year, and we have since then, the house has gone up another $15,000 or $20,000. Now we moved that money into a more expensive house, and that house has also gone up a lot. So we've taken advantage of that market. But if we had just sold and gotten out, we would have lost all of that versus keep renting the houses made $400 or $500 per house and then still gotten that appreciation. And honestly, being a landlord is just awesome. Like there's just a lot of value on taxes, personal, that can be there. Starting at high rent value. If you go in at what the rent is, it allows you to establish your value earlier on. You're not trying to increase renewals $200, $300. It's totally doable. We had to raise rent on one of our tenants this year by $200, but it's a lot easier to raise rents by $50 than by $200. And it also weeds out uninterested applicants. Because remember, you want a tenant who's going to take care of your property in the same way that you're going to take care of yours. So increase rent during turnover. You keep your great tenants. When the tenant leaves, you can increase the rent. This is really easy because you have a brand new tenant, you advertise, no big deal. That's the rent, you establish them. It's a little bit harder to do it when you have a new tenant. And we'll talk about that in a second. Remember though, that when you're doing your lease renewal agreements, that you are doing the rate of that area. Now, when you send out your documents, you want to make sure you put everything in writing. I once forgot to send out this lease renewal agreement, and my tenant came back a couple of months later and said, since we have no paperwork, let's rediscuss. So it's very important that you send out the renewal agreement. Luckily, Ezlandlord makes this really, really, really easy. Here's an example of the screen. You hit create the document, you insert your information, and you're good to go. So don't be like me, who is renegotiating a lease renewal because you forgot to send out the paperwork in the middle of a PC or middle of a move, all because of an easy document. So here's the document. You can use our promo code at the end. Dan will be putting a link to the Lease Renewal here in chat, and you can easily find it. What happens if your tenants won't renew? Well, your lease expires if you are not in a rent-controlled area. You are not required to keep them. So you could send out a non-renewal notice saying that we are not renewing them, and then you can proceed to start renting out. Be aware that you could have difficult tenants, so you might not be able to move out. They might not move out on time. You might have to evict them, or they might not let you start showing the house. And then just be careful of the costs, showings, turnovers, new applicants, and all of that. That being said, having a tenant that is not working with you, just also think about those costs. Now, here's the non-renewal notice. Again, Ezlandlord makes it super, super easy. Dan will also be putting that in the link. That's easy to send out the document. And again, make sure you put everything in writing. If it's not in writing, it doesn't count. And trust me, I've learned that the hard way over the years. So make it real easy. Use the forms. So just remember, at the end of the day, this is just business. You want to make sure that you are making the most amount of money because your tenants are going to be protecting themselves. You need to protect yourself. Okay, what questions and answers do you guys have?
First, Jonathan says, how and where can we find specific information on rent control in specific areas?
Jonathan, you'll have to go look at your state and city and county rules. That being said, most people know rent control. Think San Francisco, I believe Seattle has started it, Portland has started it, New York City, but like Somerville, South Carolina does not. Charleston, Columbia, a lot of areas don't have it. So typically, if you don't know about it, you probably don't have to worry about it. But I always recommend you looking at your local city, county, and state regulations.
Also, Jonathan, as an added note to that, each state and a lot of major cities have their own apartment associations. They deal specifically with local laws and requirements for that area. So you can always Google your local apartment association, and there's a slew of great information there. Chris wants to know, can you elaborate on comps?
So comps is like the comparison cost of other rentals in your area. So for example, if your house is a 4-bed, 3-bath, 2,000 square foot house going for $1,200 and everything else in your area is going for $1,800, then your comp is $1,800 and you're $600 undervalued. So you want to look at schools, great schools, and like if you look at Zillow on the bottom, helps you look and see that your schools match up, because remember, some areas are just one neighborhood over is a very different school district. You can make sure that like you guys are in the same school districts and have the same offerings, but that's your comp.
And I just wanted to follow up with Elena. We do have commercial leases. I'm going to put a link up for that now. You can use them for any type of retail property. You definitely want to, run through and find out what the differences are between commercial and residential properties. But this commercial lease is written to really help you with that. Peter says, what are the best new tenant applicant screening questions and techniques? Do you ever rescreen existing tenants on renewals?
Personally, to date, I have not screened tenants renewals to date. If there's a new tenant, say they're a roommate group that's breaking up, then yes, I will screen new people. But if they're all existing, I have not rescreened the existing people. As for techniques, everybody has their own method. I require 3 times rent, background and credit check. If you're military, I require a copy of your orders. I require a copy of your pay stubs, driver's license. And then I don't ask for reference personally, but I know many people do. As for how often to do recommended increases, Mark, personally, I do them. I look at them every time I renew or do a new lease to keep them at value.
All right, and Dan says, if a tenant comes up with creative ideas, example, painting the kitchen, different colors, bathrooms, is there a specific approach to take to accepting or denying those?
I personally will not pay a tenant to do upgrades to my house. I did it in the very beginning. I would, if they repaired something, I would split the value, and it bit me in the tush majorly. So I no longer will mix the two. If they want to do an upgrade to the house, say they want to repaint the house, or say they want to put a new light fixture in, or something that I am okay with, I will send them a very not long, but a very specific, like, you're allowed to do this with these requirements at their cost in a professional manner. That way they have to leave it and they're allowed to enjoy it, and I get to have it when they leave, because pulling stuff out, like changing light fixtures and such, will strip my electrical, I have been told. Again, not an electrician. So I don't allow them to move things in and out. If they want to do it the first time, then they can leave it, but it's at their cost in a professional manner with a licensed and bonded person typically. But I will not pay for those things. If it's in my budget, I need to do it to the house, then I will do it with my own people.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Joan says she has had excellent tenants over the years. She relates it to allowing pets. She just wanted to comment. Personally, having pets is great. It is really specific to each landlord and the property. I know I'm based in Philadelphia, and all of South Philadelphia, basically there's no landlord that allows pets. But once you move around the city, there are areas, bigger apartments, stuff like that, where they have no problem. Again, it is all really specific. You have anything to add to that, Elizabeth?
I allow them and love them. It actually gives me a huge boost over my competition because we allow pets. But each landlord's their own, and then you also have to look at your city and county rules. Some areas have very specific rules on pets. I know in one area of the country, I just saw it a while ago, like they don't allow certain breeds of dogs, like the county doesn't. So that is definitely something to think about.
And for Claire, where do you get the renewal or non-renewal forms? We do have them on our website. I'll put another link up to both of them in just a moment. And Chris asks, are there any rules on to how many days before they need to serve a non-renewal notice?
You need to look at your city, county, and state laws along with your lease. My lease says 60 days. So my tenants have to give me 60 days notice of what they're going to do, or I have to give them a non-renewal, but everybody gets 60 days from once they're told that we're not renewing to when they're leaving. But again, no legal advice, and you need to look at your lease and your local laws.
Jonathan asks, when you renew a lease and are planning on raising the rent on an existing tenant, at the bare minimum, can you raise the rent by an annual inflation rate? Let's say 3%. Is there a stature to go by?
Every area is different. Personally, my areas don't support an automatic 3, 5, whatever increase. They only support what that market is. So my leases for the areas that I operate do not allow for like an automatic 3 to 5%. I know of friends who live in DC that if they have like a 3-year lease, automatically in there have a 3 to 5% inflation clause. So again, it's very area by area. I look at local rents. I'm like, okay, we were at 1,100, rents jumped to 13. 13 is now market. But that's why looking at your comps, like your local comparisons, and knowing your market is so important.
Dan asks, if I screen the initial tenant, but 2 years down the road, she brings a roommate with her, should I screen the other person if the initial tenant is responsible for paying the entire rent?
I screen everybody who comes into my house. The reality is, in my areas, there's very strict squatter rights. Therefore, everybody who comes in that's more than 30 days, I even have very strict guest policies, have to be on that lease and follow all the same rules of screening.
Okay, and Jonathan, are there forms at Ezlandlord forms that allow upgrades for tenants to do? Yes, we do have one or two. I will put a link up to one right now. This is an agreement that you would send to them, agreeing that they can do these repairs. You can also edit it, so if you wanted to exchange the repair for, say, decrease in rent or something, you can put those in there as well. There's another one. I hope that I pronounced the name right. Anthu. You're asking about a commercial lease agreement. You can get one of them in any of our pro packages, $29.95 and above. Our site is a DIY site, so we have the templates for you. You can go through and fill them out. We do recommend that all landlords that build any type of form online, and I personally do as well, have everything reviewed by an attorney afterwards, just to make sure the information that you enter still complies with state law and everything like that. But you can find a commercial lease on our website, and you'll be able to build them there. We always have customer service 7 days a week as well. So if you do have any questions or need any tips, we can most certainly help you with that. And Claire asks, my current renter does not currently have renter's insurance. Should I request renter's insurance at renewal?
I personally require renter's insurance. We had a huge issue a year ago, and the renter's insurance was the key to getting that claim done. So for us, I always require it, and I personally would request it in a renewal if I had not had it. That being said, no legal advice, and it's up to you with your local state and laws.
All right. So that looks like all the questions for now that are coming in. Again, we do have customer service. We have a contact page you can always reach us at. And we are working 7 days a week, so we always get back to you as soon as possible if we're not serving you live. We want to thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to use that link for the promo code. And you can also register for next month's webinar here. In the follow-up email, we also have a questionnaire just to see how you guys liked it. If you have any topics that you do want us to cover, we would love to hear from you. We had a few people today that may not have been able to hear us right away. There will be a follow-up link to this video on YouTube as well, so you should be able to watch us there. If you guys have any other questions, don't hesitate to visit us on our website, and we'd love to talk to you there. Thank you again, Elizabeth, for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you guys all in May.
Look forward to seeing you next week. And